need to find alignment in your life, whether if it's with a company or if it's with your friends. Instant gratification is not something that you're going to have. If you can swallow that pill and you can bury your pride and just put your best foot forward every single day, you're going to find success. Purpose over paychecks, right? I think so many are just like, yeah, I need to get a job. Who you allow to sign your paycheck matters.
Welcome to It Is Good, hosted by Mike McLean, where we pause to find gratitude in everyday moments and celebrate the beauty in life. From sunrises to heartfelt conversations, let's shift focus to what is truly good.
What is going on, everyone, and welcome to It Is Good, the show with good questions and even greater purpose. Today, we're joined by someone who is genuinely redefining leadership and what it means to serve. Josh Nieves. Known as the Tebow of trades, Josh is a proven leader who started out as a proud union electrician with the IBEW and has become an influential voice in workforce development and entrepreneurship. As CEO and principal of Ascender Consulting and regional workforce development manager for Miller Electric, he's empowering organizations and people to reach their fullest potential. In one of the most profound chapters of his life, Josh was on site at Ground Zero, helping to clear rubble and restore hope after 9/11. Whether he's mentoring future leaders or launching new ventures, his purpose is unmistakable. Josh, thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much, Mike. Happy to be here, brother. It's great.
Well, I am excited to dive in. You have a rich history, and let's start with question one. So you've come from union electrician all the way up to CEO. What is the deeper why behind what you do as an entrepreneur and leader, and what really gets you out of bed in the morning?
So I got to a point, man, in my career where I had felt that I hit the ceiling, right? This is how I felt at the time. I don't really believe in that anymore, right? As an entrepreneur, you can't really think that you are, you have a limit, right? You constantly have to have a growth mindset. So at one time I did believe that. And in that time, I had felt that what else could I do? I came up pretty quickly through the ranks with the IBW and Local 3. Very grateful. My father really paved the way. I would say, held my hand and guided me, which was a huge part of my success. So for me, the industry gave me so much, but I felt that at some point I was going to need to give it back, right? So I just over time started to see some of the issues that were impacting workforce, the guys in the trenches, the individuals who are walking the beat, spending time out in the field every single day. I saw retention issues. I saw people packing it up early, walking away from the trades entirely, people getting stuck, career stagnation, right? So I saw all this happen, Mike, and eventually I started mentoring individuals, and that turned into what is now Ascender Consulting. And it really just came down to wanting to serve people. And it's been amazing ever since.
What role would you say your dad had in really desire to create a mentorship type business and company?
Uh, Everything. So my father was a very successful electrical contractor, signatory with the IBW. So he did very well for himself, and I saw the life that he provided for me, my sister, and my brother, and my mother as well. My mother was able to stay home, be a stay-at-home mom. We don't see that a lot today, and that's a huge blessing. So my mother was able to be there for us while my father went out there and provided. So I saw that lifestyle that he provided for us, and naturally I was attracted to it. And as far as mentorship goes, he is the reason why I am where I am today. He had always told me, even in my teens, son, you always have to take a step forward, never take a step back. At a young age, I competed in amateur boxing all the way up to my early 20s. And one thing he always said to me was, son, stop taking steps back. You need to move forward. You need to punch through your target. And I really ended up kind of bringing that into my everyday walk, right? So every move I made, I always made sure I was taking a step forward. Maybe it was in my marriage, or maybe it was in the workplace. I was never settling, just always making sure I moved through whatever challenges or obstacles were in my way. My father was the absolute, and he still is to this day, the absolute greatest asset to my success.
Wow. What a tribute. So I mean, let's talk to the listeners out there that perhaps don't have that father figure in their life and really uh, crave and desire that mentorship. What's something that you would say to them?
Yeah, so one of the really important things is, and you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, Mike, is alignment. You need to find alignment in your life, whether if it's with a company or if it's with your friends or if it's people that, you look up to, right? Why do you look up to them? What makes them so unique and what makes them stand out? If you don't have someone like my father in your life, and I know many people aren't fortunate to have that, I would probably tell you look for those people that inspire you. Find the spaces that they're in, and then look to network and connect with them and build those relationships. And then from there, I would just say, like I tell everyone, my clients and people that I work one to one with, a closed mouth does not get fed. If there is someone that inspires you or someone is in a place that you would love to be, you need to start having those conversations with them, and you need to try and get yourself in front of these people and build the relationship. And then from there, eventually, if you're hungry enough and you're driven enough, people will be attracted to that, I would say, that growth mindset that you have, and they will mentor you. I see it quite a bit.
As do I. As do I. You can feel that on somebody when someone else has that grit. I mean, that's when I met you, Josh. I could feel that on you, just a hunger and a desire and a grit to make an impact.
Thank you, buddy.
That's really special. So I think the listeners are probably eager to hop into your experience, really after 9/11 and just being one of the first few individuals there on site. So I do want to give some context here. So in 2001, I was in high school at the time, and this event was really what propelled me into the military and going to the Air Force Academy to play basketball. Hugely impactful, especially any millennials or those that were around during this time. I mean, it's one of those life changing events. And so, really, what I'd love to hear is how that experience affected you, taught you, specifically about perhaps hope, resilience, community. How has it shaped you as a leader?
Yeah. So I was very young as well, and what ended up happening, I had a really unique situation. So my father, I had mentioned before, was a signatory contractor with Local 3. Right? So what ended up happening was my father had the maintenance contract in both towers, right? I just want to give you a backstory to how I ended up there, like what that looked like, especially because I was so young. So my father was a signatory. He had maintenance in both towers, right? So when the towers had fell, I was in school, and I knew that my father, every single day, Monday through Friday, from 9 o'clock to 10, he would have coffee with his guys. And long behold, it was in one of the two towers, right? So we all know what time the towers hit, right? The towers got hit. So when this was just flooding through my school, immediately I thought, I knew my dad. My dad, again, talked about moving forward. My dad was not someone who would have left that situation or would have ran, right? Um, but Mike, I can tell you, God works in very mysterious ways, and I know there are hundreds of thousands of stories. That day, my dad had a doctor's appointment, did not go in, right? But unfortunately, he did lose, I believe, one individual who was in his workforce. So when all of this was transpiring, it was just like super chaotic. So many Americans know. Didn't really matter where you were that day, but you felt the effects of and the impact of that. So finally, my dad had to essentially be part of that cleanup. And me being in my early teens, naturally, I told my dad, as I would in the summer, Dad, I want to go and help. Can I help you? Can I help you? Whatever capacity. I would like to take some time off from school. So many were doing that, right? And I want to go down and I want to be a part of this thing in any way I can. And so I was able to spend some time down there, helping my father essentially rebuild his business. He lost a lot of assets. Essentially, I'll be honest with you, Mike, it put him in a position where he did need to sell his business because that was a large contract that was feeding him every single month, especially as a small minority owned business. So it was at the point where I just needed to be there. I felt I wanted to just help my dad. and kind of, I would say, pick up the pieces, for lack of a better term, right? And I got to see the site. I got to spend time with the guys and what they were dealing with. And as a young person, this impacted me really deeply. And touching on that, one of my first opportunities was being able to work inside the Freedom Tower, uh, 15 plus years later, as we were building that project. So full circle, man, that was my experience with it. And, thank God my father's still here. And, unfortunately, God rest the souls of those who are no longer with us.
Tell me a little bit about building the Freedom Tower and just, yeah, it's one thing to have such a monumental task in building such a large structure.
Yeah.
But what was the general feel on the other side of that? Just being a part of something that's so historical with, a personal impact in your life.
Yeah. So I would say that there's two really, really amazing things that came out of my experience on the Freedom Tower. One of them was just being there, having that opportunity to be on site. And prior to going to the Freedom Tower, I was actually at the Empire State Building. And I was running this is one of my first jobs as a foreman. I was a sub foreman, just kind of getting my hands wet, really learning how to delegate work and lead men. And finally, when I heard EJ, who's the company I was with at the time, had a large portion of it, I had reached out to my super and I said, "Hey, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I know I'm not supposed to ask you, but I would really love an opportunity to work at the Freedom Tower at any capacity, whether if you want, whether I'm the lowest guy or the biggest guy on the project. I want to just get there, whatever that looks like." And several months later, I was able to go there. And to answer your question, one of the most profound things that I found on that project over, I would say, any project that they worked on to date was the collaboration was second to none. The culture on that job site, New York is very gritty. Culture is not really a word we throw around too much. We're there to get the job done and keep it moving. Metrics matter, right? But with that being said, there was a camaraderie there that I haven't seen since, in just working alongside other trades, iron workers, steam fitters, welders, other electrical contractors, putting this thing together. And I'm happy to say that one of the final things that I did while I was there, we landed the spire, which is the tip of the Freedom Tower. I was part of that experience and lighting that up. So there are some amazing things that happened on that project, but I would say one of the coolest things was the collaboration amongst the other trades.
Tell me a little bit when that spire went up, and I'm assuming you were at a great vantage point. What was that moment like?
Man, I don't know if there's words for it, Mike. I'm usually pretty good at putting words together, but that was just more of something you had to be there for, right? And it's something I'll always have with me. And I think, Mike, there's a video actually out there on social media, I think on YouTube, and I think it was produced by Local 3 and the IBW of that whole event. I'm not in the video, but basically inside there, the names of the individuals who he lost are all engraved in that spire, and so many other individuals. So those will be there forever until, to the end of time. So it was just something you had to be there for. And I'm grateful I was.
Honestly, just as so I was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and I visited Ground Zero several times, and since the Freedom Tower was built, and it's just to be a part of something that is so impactful to hundreds of millions of lives. How special to be a part of something with such a rich history. And really, let me ask you this question: the Freedom Tower and what it represents.
Mm.
Obviously, that means something to you. What is your perspective of what that means to Americans across the United States?
Wow. I mean, that's a great question, man. I would say it looks different for each and every one of us. For me, it really touches on the resilience of the American people in our ability to bounce back and create something bigger, better, greater. And that is essentially what as Americans, what I believe is our nucleus, right? That's that strength, that camaraderie. And, Mike, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen, since that project, like I'd mentioned before, I haven't seen that type of collaboration. And I would love to see more of that on the job. But I think because there was such an emotional attachment to it, and I do believe with our work and our profession, we should treat every project that way, right? I know this was very unique, and I know this was for a very good reason, right? But I think everything we do is to serve people, and I believe if we went on every project and we had this kind of mindset, I think that would go a lot smoother, and people would be, I would say, collaborating a lot more frequently. But that is a really unique question. But I think that job in particular and the Freedom Tower in particular speaks to people uh, in a multitude of ways. For me, it was just very impactful because it was my second shot at leadership uh, once I had left the Empire State Building. And it was also a reminder of just the strength that we have as Americans and what we're capable of.
Hmm. It's an interesting point that you raise as well, because I experienced that, downrange, just the mission buy-in. It has less to do with cranking a wrench or putting away a medical record, and way more to do about what is the actual mission. So, do you have any thoughts or recommendations on how you can almost contrive, obviously not to that level, but creating a culture that galvanizes that group of people to a similar degree?
So I think it really comes down to leadership, with regard to that question. So it really, when you talk about buy-in, for me as a leader, doing our team huddles and doing our toolbox talks every day, we have these type, at least I do. I make sure we have these conversations, and I make sure that everybody understands the impact that we're leaving. Maybe it's building a pop-up hospital during COVID. Maybe it's, doing some branch circuitry inside of the Freedom Tower. Every single thing that we do is there to serve people and is there to leave an impact. But because we do things so often, day to day, right? 40, 50, 60 hour work weeks, I said we get a little complacent and it just becomes Groundhog Day. So I think sometimes we just need to reel our teams back in, right? And we need to have those conversations just to remind everyone that like what you are doing is essential and critical to not just the infrastructure, but the growth of this country. And we're here to serve people, and just don't take that, don't take it for granted. You are valued.
That's good. I do have a test for that. When people leave the work site, let's say they have great apathy and they head home, do they have apathy at home as well? Are they just an apathetic person? Because I think the human spirit, when it's awakened, it's not just awakened in one area. It's awakened in all areas. And each of us can find gratitude and positive things everywhere that we're at. I'm curious, with you having such a unique perspective with the trades and workforce development, do you see any unique challenges within that industry that kind of set it apart from other industries?
Yeah, the people. Blue collar workers, blue collar professionals are just different. You know, and I talk about this quite a bit. You need to be able to speak our language. Relatability really matters to us. You can have all the speakers in the world, all the big leadership gurus in the world. If you do not speak the language of a blue collar worker, your words are gonna fall on deaf ears, right? If you don't know what it is to sit on a spackle bucket and have a cold cup of coffee and a cold breakfast 60 stories in the air, you're probably not relatable. If you don't know what it is to sit in the heat and use one porter john on a job site that's got 150 people on it, you're not speaking our language, right? And if you don't know what the struggles and delegating work and creating high performing teams on a construction site is not the same as doing it inside of a climate controlled office. You need to be able to speak the language. Once you're able to do that, you gain the respect and you will gain the attention of whomever you'd like to, but you need to be able to get there first.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Is there one example you can think of where there was an outsider coming in, whether it was a leader or a speaker, that gained the respect and trust early on? And if so, how did they do that?
Yeah, that's great. So I was at JFK. I don't want to butcher the timeline, but I'm going to say probably 4 years ago. and we had a really young project manager, right? I mean, green. Like he might as well have been out of high school. He went to college, did his thing, super green. But his father was a very well respected foreman, very well respected. I worked for his father as well. And I took on this new project. It was like a street lighting type project, for temporary street lighting project for this new uh, JFK expansion project. And this was his first one, man. He was getting his feet wet, and I had a pretty gritty crew. Good guys, but not pushovers by any means, right? And this young individual would openly have conversations with me about how he can be accepted. Like, Josh, I feel like the guys are kind of cold and they're not. I said, listen, they don't know you. Just try to build a relationship with them. Right? They're gonna give you a hard time. They're gonna bust your chops a little bit, right? This is just what it is. This is a job site, right? But if they don't do it, it means they don't like you. So don't take it to heart, right? So over time, what he would do is he would come into our trailer and just start having conversations with the guys, right? And he would ask these simple questions such as, "Hey, is there anything you guys need that I can get for you?" Like, guys would be like, this is how they would kind of give him a look, right? Um, "Hey guys, listen, I know it's gonna be cold out there tonight. I ordered dinner for you guys. I got some hot coffees coming." Like these little things that this kid would do. But I knew he was being coached, right? I didn't groom him. I wasn't teaching him, right? He had his own role. But his father was kind of feeding those things into him. Before you know it, I would say maybe it didn't even take a month before he became like one of us, right? He became like one of the guys, and he'd come out into the field. He'd ask questions. "Hey guys, what are you doing out here? Why are you using X instead of Y to perform this task?" Um, and essentially, he was the PM, so he was reporting back to our executive team on what was happening on the day to day. And he made us look really good, man. And in that, he earned. I mean, he had my respect already just because I knew his father and I knew the type of kid he was. But goes back to that individual we talked about in the beginning. I saw he had it. I saw he cared and he really wanted to learn. But in the interim, became his responsibility to show the guys and prove that worth. And he did it like that. And he became part of the family, man. And it didn't take much. It really didn't.
Well, so your role at Miller Electric, from what I understand, is preparing the next generation for industry success.
Yeah.
I'd be curious from your perspective, how do you motivate younger workers to invest in themselves, to have that growth mindset that you were talking about,
Yeah.
especially in a world that is just absolutely saturated with instant gratification?
Yeah. So, one of the things I like to do, Mike, is storytelling seems to work very well. Just having conversations. And again, I'm not too far away from there's not a huge age gap between me and the generation that's coming in. So there is a sense of relatability. So I leverage that. I think that's very important to be able to understand this next generation and meet them where they are, and also talk about growth opportunities. I can confidently say a company like Miller makes my job very easy, right? When I talk about all the opportunities that are within a company, and I share that with them, their eyes start to light up, right? And then when I talk about how I did it, their eyes start to light up. They start to realize very quickly that success is for everyone, right? And it's not this linear path. If you want to stay in the field, you can accelerate in the field, or you could just accelerate in the role that you're in. Maybe you just want to be a journeyman. That's what you like to do, right? You can still continue to build value in that space, right? So essentially, I teach these younger professionals how to do that. And then there are individuals who are like, "Hey, man, I want to become a foreman. I want to become a superintendent." A company like Miller has those opportunities. But if you want that, there's going to be a certain mindset and sense of accountability that you're going to have to adopt for you to reach that level of success. And it really comes down to the dollar amount, man. A lot of guys want to make more money, right? They want to drive the nicer cars, have the bigger home. So with that, comes more responsibility and an ownership mindset that you need to adopt. And a company like Miller is making the necessary investments to get you there. When you have those conversations, they kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then from there they're like, "Hey, man, this is totally up to me. I am in the driver's seat, and I could stay here, or I can constantly I can evolve."
As a mentor, do you see it as your role to almost stack the deck to present the growth mindset as a superior side to instant gratification? Or do you see it as your role just to provide the roadmap and informations for them to decide on their own?
Yeah, so the instant gratification isn't going to happen. I'm very clear about that. This is a long game, right? And it is entirely up to you how it's played, right? You can have quick growth. I had very rapid growth because again of my mindset, or you can pace it. You can pace it on your own, right? Some guys say, "Hey, I want at least 10 years working with my tools before I step into leadership." Or maybe I want to take X amount of classes before I think about, evolving into X role or Y role, right? Instant gratification is not something that you're gonna have, right? And I'm sure the military is no different. You got to pay your dues. You have to pay your dues, right? You come into the business, you got to do your 4 or 5 year apprenticeship program, depending what local you work out of. Like, that's not instant gratification. You could spend a year getting coffee and sweeping shanties. That's just part of it, right? That's part of the growth process. So if you can swallow that pill and you can bury your pride and just put your best foot forward every single day, you're gonna find success. But that's totally up to you.
Well, I think the instant gratification is more cultural than anything else. I mean, we've got these guys right here that can send a message up to space and back in, less than a second. And we get frustrated if it takes 5 seconds
Hmm.
to find out, who wrote the Declaration of Independence and how many people signed it. It's like, okay, well, we used to have to go look that up in something called a thesaurus or an encyclopedia and have to walk over and change the channel on the TV. And just times change and things become so much easier and quicker. And that expectation for the result of your action has somehow shortened over time. And so, as someone that has also worked on a farm before, would you mind telling the audience a little bit about this Hudson farm and just your experience, some of the lessons learned that you've had with that project?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's a hate or love it kind of. The farm is one of those conversations where it depends on the day you catch me on, whether I'm going to talk about how great it is or talk about how bad it is. But
Kind of
no,
there, Josh.
I will confidently tell you it was one of the greatest initiatives that I um took to one of the greatest initiatives that I decided to take on, right? That's really what I'm looking for here. It was one of the greatest challenges I ever took on. So this was Mike essentially my I got to a point in my career, like I had mentioned before, things were going very well, but I wanted something different. I really wanted to take some time off and focus on me. And that's exactly what I did. And essentially, I thought it would be a good idea to buy a farm, right? At the time when we got the farm, it was not income producing. There was a lot of stuff happening on it. I bought it pretty much sight unseen. I couldn't talk to any of the tenants that were there. I couldn't go in two of the homes that were there, but I knew I see your facial reaction, man. I took a big risk. I'm just gonna, without saying all the niche details, I took a big risk in buying this 200-acre farm, right? But I knew that if I can build a multi-million dollar electrical installation in New York City and delegate work and build strong, effective teams, I could build a farm. How hard can this be, right? It's listen, it had its own set of challenges, but the principles remain the same. Build relationships with people, admit what you don't know, take an ownership mindset, and just keep moving forward, right? So this is essentially what I did. Um, and It is a multi six figure revenue piece of property, and it's doing very well. I don't know if I'm going to keep it for that much longer. There's some acquisition talks happening. That's you're getting some like kind of backdoor information kind of stuff right now. So there was some acquisition stuff happening in some talks. So I'm very excited about that. But right now, Mike, it was a great opportunity for me to step away from the industry and really figure out what I wanted. And it's thriving, man. It's doing very well.
What would you say is the single most important similarity between the work that you've done on the farm and the work you've done in industry?
Yeah, just dealing with people. Building relationships. Mike, when I got there, I didn't know a thing about agriculture, knew nothing, right? So, essentially, I was going to have to adopt that apprentice mindset, right? Like, I don't know anything. Like, we had a horse barn with 6 stalls, right? I didn't know what that was worth. I had an outdoor riding ring. I didn't know what it was worth. I didn't know what someone in the equine world would want to see inside the space. So essentially, I reached out to local farm hands, and I can tell you the farming community, the ag community is absolutely stellar. They're amazing, and they would come in and tell me, "Hey, this is worth X, this is worth Y, but these are the steps that you need to take to make this successful." So I knew a lot of the work I needed these, so I can do that. But I just didn't know what the value was behind it, right? Like I have about 120 acres of organic hay. I don't know what that's worth. Like what's a hay bale worth, right? So I had to learn all these things. And there's also individuals who will tell you it's worth X because they want a piece of it, right? So there's some stuff that happens on the back end, and there's people who genuinely want to help you and tell you, no, you have a beautiful piece of property. This is what it's worth. You just need to find that right person to um, come and take it, right? So just finding all those pieces. So between the equine side, I have 200 dairy cows on the farm. That's a whole nother thing, right? And a whole dairy operation. What does that look like? And then the hay farming, right? Crop. Like, what does all this mean? What is all this worth? Like, can I make money? Like, what does this look like, right? And essentially, it is all worth something, right, to someone. So I decided to bring on rather than me do all this labor, I brought on a dairy farmer, commercial dairy farmer, right? It was essentially utilizing the space and running and operating their own business. Excuse me, I had a horse performance facility ran by someone else who that is their business and bread and butter, right? So they came on and they made it theirs. And the hay farming, I brought on a local organic hay farmer. I leased out all the land to him. So essentially, everyone's running their own business. It's entrepreneurs, right? And me, I just ended up being a glorified landlord wannabe farmer. So
Well, it sounds like you're doing a fantastic job, at least from the outside looking in. So, one of the questions that I had, and probably a shared, I guess, in different industries and different experiences, but working in high stress circumstances and scenarios, when the stakes are higher, attention to detail is a little bit more important. You've worked on iconic locations: Brooklyn Bridge, LaGuardia Airport, the Freedom Tower. What are in some of those high intensity environments, what have you learned about how to communicate with people and perform under pressure?
every day I would set goals and expectations with my team. It was never like, all right, guys, good morning, everybody go to work. I used to see that quite a bit, and I knew it never worked. And guys used to kind of make fun of me. Everyone used to say, oh, Josh, there goes his team huddle every morning, right? But I found that to be super impactful and super important. So, Mike, to answer your question, when there were those days where I felt that uh, stress was going to be a little bit higher, expectations were a little bit higher, I would always have those conversations first thing in the morning. Hey guys, this is the plan for the day. This is what we need to get done. This is when we need to get it done. And if we get it done by this time, tomorrow is going to look really good for us. And that can mean a lot of different things. And that kind of turns into how do you create incentives and get people to perform at their highest level?
And I think, Josh, I think a lot of leaders just leave it as, let me talk to my people, let me talk at them. And they never tie it to anything that interests the individual or, to your point, has any type of incentive to outcomes. And I think that is so missed in leadership is how do you tie it back to what they truly care about?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, though having that breakout session every single morning, setting expectations is critical. It's crucial. And one of the great parts about that is I would put that on the table for everyone. And I would say like one of the most important things is like looking at the way they would respond. I can tell if they were confident. I can tell if they were like, yeah, Josh, you're pushing it, right? And essentially, if I got that from a core group, I'd say, okay, let me dial this back. We may need to call an audible. But most of the time, getting that feedback from them would would almost teach me whether like, hey, like dude, you're stretching this thing or like, okay, this is realistic. But over time, like, just to kind of summarize this, when you start to do that, you start to know when you're pushing and when you are being realistic. Um, or maybe if you're somewhere right in between, right? Like, hey, like I'm pushing this thing, but I know we can still get it done. And then again, just if they're in alignment with it, right? Just you can't fail.
Yeah, I think as somebody that interestingly is in a mentorship role, and people kind of look to for guidance, I've noticed that there's been a shift culturally, I'd say since COVID, the last 4 or 5 years, where people are really trying to look and connect with jobs that match their passions, their personal interests.
Mm.
What advice would you offer to someone who's striving to connect their personal purpose to their professional work?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that question. So I would say purpose over paychecks, right? I think so many are just like, yeah, I need to get a job. Like, I just need to work, like who you decide to, who you allow to sign your paycheck matters.
Yeah.
Right? So many, I guess, back in the day, we used to hear like, why should I hire you? Why would you be a good pick for so and so construction? When now we're in a position where individuals have the authority, they have the power to say, well, why should I work for you? Right? This is another perfect example. And I always talk about pizza because it's super relatable to what we do, especially coming from New York, right? In New York City, there are thousands of pizzerias, right? Um, and some are not so good, and some are right as good as they're ever gonna get. So what separates your pizza from the guy next door? And that's the mindset I have. And if Mike, if you've noticed, I've only worked for two of the leading electrical contractors in the nation, EJ Electric and Miller Electric, right? And there was a reason for that. Be intentional. And I said this earlier on about who you let sign your paycheck. Be intentional about who you decide to go and work with. Don't just take a job for the sake of it, right? Do your homework, learn about the company's culture, learn about the people who are leading the company. Maybe you reach out to individuals who are working within the company, start to ask them questions. Full transparency, before I came to Miller, I had several friends who worked at Miller. Call them up. Hey, this is an opportunity that came to me. What do you guys think? And you start to hear all the good and all the bad. And I can confidently say when I came to Miller, prior to coming to Miller, I mean, the praises that these guys were giving them, and these are very high level people, movers and shakers, I would say. If they're telling me, Josh, this is a great move for you, it's all I needed to hear. So
Yeah, and that's such an important advice for those that are trying to connect with that passion is take your time. Don't just look for the paycheck or an outcome, but actually take the time to analyze exactly what you said, Josh, because it's so, so important. I think it's naive to think that we're not influenced by other human beings. And it doesn't really matter if they're your boss or your coworker. Pessimism is pessimism. Negativity is negativity, and it's spread. It's like a cancer. I do want to ask one question before we move on. And this is going to be the hardest hitting journalistic question you'll probably ever get in a podcast.
love it.
Are
Do
you
it.
ready?
Yeah, man.
What is the best type of pizza?
Okay, I'm going to be subjective here, though. All right.
What?
This is very opinionated. I would say I love a nice thin crust
Come on.
pie. That's my style. Thin crust. If I can really niche it down for you and talk about an exact pizza location to get what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
I would say Patty's Pizza, Harlem, the original Patsy's Pizza, not the franchise out, the original Patsy's Pizza in Harlem will give you that perfect thin crust, no flop, no grease pizza. That is absolutely my favorite pie. Anytime I go to New York City, I make sure that I make a stop at Patsy's. Phenomenal.
I'm hungry now. Have you tried New Haven?
Okay, so New Haven is delicious as well. That's like it's funny because when people talk about New York City pizza, if you know anything about pie or pizza, New Haven will always come up in top. It will always come up. If we're talking about pizza and you don't bring it up, I'm probably just gonna I'm probably going to assume you know very little about pizza. You have to know. Everyone talks about New Haven pizza. Any pizza in New Haven I had has been phenomenal, but for some reason, and I think it's if you've ever been to Patsy's in New York City, when you go inside, it has this very old school vintage vibe. So there's pictures of celebrities all over the place. It's never been renovated. It looks like it's out of probably like the 1950s, right? It's the same oven they've been using since the beginning of their inception. So it's just a feeling you get when you go in there. You know what I mean? And then
You know
you
what
know it
really
has
baked those bricks?
yeah, yeah,
What baked into the bricks is
yeah.
love.
Whatever's in there, man, you can't replicate it. It's you can't redo it, man. You know, and it's something different about the water out there, man. I don't know.
To your point, though, it's kind of like talking about the best NBA player of all time. Like, even if you're going to disagree and say it's not Jordan, which you're crazy if you're going to say that, you at least have to acknowledge, I get it. You know, people say Jordan's the best, but that's New Haven. You got to at least acknowledge it and say, but, and then go with whatever you're going to say. So you said thin crust. I was like, well, we got to talk about New Haven. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's awesome. I appreciate you indulging me there. Well, this has been fun. We've got one final segment. This is going to be a prompt and response segment. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a word or two and then just get your gut reaction. So, you can do a word, a sentence, just a short little blurb responding to the prompt. Does that sound good?
I like it.
Cool. All right. The first prompt is going to be something that you're very familiar with, entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship. The first thing I think of is my wife. My first thing is I think of my wife. She really paved the way and introduced me to entrepreneurship. I believe that being an entrepreneur is super critical today, right? Not just having one means of income, right? And then on top of it, also, you can take that and bring that into a business and develop an entrepreneur mindset, where essentially you become your own driving force within a powerhouse company, and that's what I'm doing with Miller.
That's good. Union,
The best in the business, the best.
ground zero.
Grateful.
Mm. Oh, man. That's that's good. Leadership,
My father.
workforce,
Me.
community.
Christians.
Wow. Innovation.
Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. Tesla. Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, you're done, Josh.
That's it. It's over now. A year ago, it would have been a great answer, but here we are.
It'll be a good answer in a year from now. So
Yeah, I hope so.
in 2 years, it's going to be terrible. So
Gotta check my followers after this, man.
I mean, if you can't acknowledge that he is an outside the box thinker, that's part of the problem. And I'll just put this out there real quick, just mid segment. We have lost the ability to have civil discourse. And that's part of the reason for this channel, by the way, is I invite anyone on the show. I don't care if they're left or right, Christian, non-Christian, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The ability to have that civil discourse and dialogue is so important.
Yeah.
I digress. Great answer. Family.
Can only think of my wife and my little girl Esme.
Legacy.
Let's say I'd go back to my old man.
Purpose.
People.
That's awesome. Well, that's great, brother. These are good answers, certainly. So I do want to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Josh. It has been a genuine pleasure allowing us to kind of deep dive into your story, being vulnerable with your answers. Thanks for opening up about your passions, resilience, and really what drives your leadership, your experiences from ground zero to starting a farm out of nowhere, illustrating the incredible power that we have as human beings to make an impact when we're led by our values. Yeah. Thank you. Well, to anybody listening, remember to reflect on your own why and carry it forward into whatever you're building next. Thanks again to Josh for coming and joining us on the show today. Everyone have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Take care.